At this point in time, Elizabeth Larus, Non-Resident Senior Fellow of the Atlantic Council, joins us on the program. Elizabeth, thank you so much for speaking with us. Well, Trump and Biden have sparred over the unsavory comment on Puerto Ricans. Could this impact the way Puerto Ricans and other migrants vote?
It could impact the few undecided people of Puerto Rican heritage and perhaps Latinos living in the United States. As you know, Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico cannot vote. However, the shadow senator, Zairado Bucio, she did come out and endorse Trump, and she said, don't be distracted by the noise. After the comedian at the Trump rally made those comments, and remember, it wasn't Trump who made the comments, it was the comedian. Now, maybe it was a bad choice, to pick this comedian for a rally. Afterwards, the Harris administration, as well as the media, really ramped up using the Nazi label, and then you probably heard that President Biden said the only garbage out there are Trump supporters, of which in the last election there were 70 odd million. So I don't know. There's so many labels being thrown around at this point. It could have some impact at the margins, which in the battleground states, that's where the game is being played. So it's possible.
All right. Well, Kamala Harris strategically held a rally at the January 6th insurrection site and attacks on Trump, calling him fascist, racist, a Nazi, resonating with the average American. What do you make of these thoughts?
I don't see that being an effective strategy to convince voters not to vote for Trump. The Never Trumpers weren't going to vote, for him anyway. I distinctly recall that the label Nazi Hitler was also applied to Mitt Romney when he was running for president against Barack Obama. It was applied to President Bush, I believe both the President Bushes. So it's a label that is revived by the Democratic Party in nearly every presidential election. And so if you use it all the time for every candidate, it really loses its punch. And so again, the candidates are trying to get those few undecideds out there in the battleground states. Will it persuade a few people at this point? I don't see that it's going to move the margins very much.
Do you think that the January 6th insurrection is still fresh in the minds of the voters, and will this impact this election as well?
I don't think that it is fresh anymore. People certainly remember it, particularly those who are critical of Trump. Again, the Never Trumpers, it might be fresh in the minds of the Never Trumpers. He wasn't going to get their vote anyway. The freshest issues right now are the economy, particularly high prices that came about from high inflation, and the high cost of housing. Mortgages are high and houses are expensive, and so people can't afford to move out of their houses, and young couples can't afford to buy houses, and rents are going up tremendously. The other thing that's freshest in people's mind is the problem of illegal immigration. So those are the things that are the pressing issues right now. Those are the things that the candidates really need to hammer home, rather than reminding people of something that happened, 3.5 years ago.
All right. Well, poll projections put Trump ahead of Harris on economic policies. Could this tilt the polls in Trump's favor, according to you?
Yes. I think that his campaign has been effective in saying, were you better off under my administration than under the Biden-Harris administration? And it is true, inflation was low. He or his administration had removed a lot of regulation from businesses, had cut corporate business taxes. So all of that contributed to a dynamic economy. And then it's true that when Biden Harris came into office, the US was experiencing the COVID pandemic. But in following through with a second stimulus package on top of the Trump one, caused inflation to go shooting skyward. And that hurt a lot of Americans in their pocketbook. Real wages have fallen 4.5% at least since the Trump administration. And that's not something that's lost on the average American when he or she goes to the grocery store or pays the bills. So I think if Trump is doing better on the economy, that is certainly to his advantage, and that would be a strong suit for him to continue to play in the remaining few days before the election.
Well, Trump has alienated himself from women voters with his anti-abortion policy. How significant is the women vote in U.S. polls?
The women's vote is very significant. There has been for many years a so-called gender gap between men and women, between the Republican and the Democratic Party. And even within the Republican Party right now, there is a discernible gender gap. And that is why Kamala Harris is going after the women's vote. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has been campaigning for her. A number of celebrities have come out to try to get that suburban women's vote. The question is, Trump has made a lot of inroads with young men, the young male voter, as well as young minority men. More than 30% of young Black men say that they support Trump. So Harris has to go after the women's vote to balance that out. I look forward to seeing the statistics after the election to see how the chips fall. But we can say with a lot of certainty here that she will certainly get a lot of the women's vote. And again, it's so important in those swing states.
Right. Elizabeth, who is more likely to be more aggressive on China, Trump or Kamala Harris?
All indicators are that Trump would be more aggressive. I know his critics said that he has praised Xi Jinping for his ability to control a population of 1.4 billion. He has also compared China to the size of that huge desk in the Oval Office and Taiwan to the point of a Sharpie pen. However, when you look at his policies, he did bring the hammer down on trade with China in the form of high tariffs against Chinese imports, and he has signed off on every arms package to Taiwan that crossed his desk. So looking at his actions 4 years ago as president, we can see that he likely will be tough on China. Again, Harris is much more from that Democratic Party vein of engagement. And to engage requires that you go over and you talk and that you are somewhat approachable to China. So I think that Trump would be tougher. Harris would be more open to engagement with China.
Elizabeth, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with us. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.